All right. Good afternoon. And I trust and I believe everyone is doing good. Welcome everyone to our live Facebook video broadcast. And I trust everyone is doing good. And in the next 20 minutes, I hope you can make time with me as we journey through the scriptures. And we are going to look at restoration of all things and how that connects to the cloud coming of the Lord, or what is commonly called the second coming of Christ. How does the restoration of all things, or the restitution of all things, connect to the the return of the Lord, or the cloud coming of the Lord? And I believe that the two are interwoven. They correlate to one another, and so if you're able to pinpoint the time of the restoration of all things, then you should be able to tell uh, whether the Lord has come or he has not come yet. And that is what we are going to look at. Okay, so, restoration of all things will primarily be the restoration of Edenic garden. Okay, there the Lord dwelt with men, but for some reason, for the infraction of the commandment the Lord gave to Adam and Eve, he removed his presence from men. However, um, through Zechariah, the Lord prophesies of a time when when he will restore that lost, relationship with men, that lost covenant relationship with men. So, and that will, in the New Testament, mean the return of the Lord, because the Lord withdrew his presence from men. Now he's going to restore his presence with men again. And I believe that is the theme of the New Testament. But as I said, after man lost its his relationship with God, God promised of another restoration. God promised that He is going to restore that lost relationship with men. And this is what the Lord said in Zechariah chapter 6, verse 12 and verse 13. So let's all go there and read it together so that we will know, how that scheme of restoration, worked out both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. So in Zechariah chapter number 12, Zechariah chapter number 6, precisely, uh, starting at verse 12 down to verse 14, I believe. Uh, okay. Now, verse 12, it says that Zechariah chapter 6, verse 12 and verse 13, it says that then speak to him, saying, thus says the Lord of hosts, saying, behold, the man whose name is the branch, and the branch is in caps, okay, meaning, it has to do with someone of higher power. From his place he shall branch out, and he shall build a temple of the Lord. So this branch, okay, being part of the Godhead, he is going to build the temple of the Lord. Now, what did the Lord say in first? What did the Lord say in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18? He says that I will also build my church. Okay, he was going to build his temple in fulfillment of what Zechariah said will come. Now, this is after God has withdrew his presence from men. He has cut off covenant relationship with men. Okay, and men were just wandering over the surface of the earth without any relationship. to our Maker. So behold, the man whose name is the branch from his place, he shall branch out. He shall build the temple of the Lord. Yes, he shall build the temple of the Lord. He shall bear the glory and shall sit and rule on a throne. Okay, so what did the Lord say in John chapter number 12, verse 31 that do? He said that when I am lifted up, I am going to draw all men to myself. So when he's lifted up, he's now going to sit on a throne and he's going to invite, faithfuls or people to himself. Okay, but of course, that is resurrection. So he said that yes, he shall build the temple of the Lord, he shall build the glory, he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule on a throne. So he shall be a priest on a throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. Okay, so this is how God was going to restore relationship with men again. He's going to do that through a new temple, that new and and more perfect tabernacle. That is what he was going to build. That which is all related to the one built with hands. He's now going to build a temple not made with hands, because our Lord throne sits in that temple not built with hands. In Isaiah chapter 66, verse 1, and Acts chapter 7, verse 47 through to 48, it says that our Lord has not dwelled in temple built with hands. Okay, so is the temple which our Lord will build, to glorify the Father, and within which he is going to sit on the throne to rule and to reign. That temple, is not built with human hands, and it is not, of course, of the creation in the first century. And as Luke said, it does not come with observation because it's a spiritual kingdom. And Paul said that that temple is called. Uh, it says that in Hebrew chapter number 9, verse 11 to 12, it said that but Christ came as a high priest of the good things to come. Now, what did Zechariah say? He said that so he shall be a priest on his throne. Now, we know that Christ is our high priest, and the place of high priest, okay, is confined to the most holy place. And, his priesthood is different from that of Mosaical priesthood, in that whilst they will go there and return yearly under the Mosaical system, under the old covenant, Christ entered there once and for all, atoned for the sins of the world, then returned to sit upon his throne to reign. That will be the time when he invite, faithful to himself, so that where he is, that is in the most holy place, there the saint will also be. Okay, so it says that, but Christ came as a high priest of the good things to come, with greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is not of this creation. So that temple or the tabernacle which Christ was going to build to glorify the Father is called greater and more perfect, tabernacle. He's going to build it he's going to build this tabernacle in order to dwell among, the faithfuls, or, among his royal priesthood, if you please. Okay, that will be the time when he restore that lost relationship in Eden, with men again. Okay, so to God was going to restore the lost relationship, with men through a more or greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands and not of this creation. See, it has always been the zeal of God, to dwell among his people as he did under the old covenant in Exodus chapter 25, verse 1 to 8. It says that, let my people go in order that they may build a tabernacle for me so that I may dwell among them. You understand? So under the old covenant, God dwelt with Israel, in that temple made with hands. But Of course, I believe that that explains why, he did not have a permanent stay with them, because he does not dwell in that tabernacles made with hands. Okay, but the one we are talking about, the one which Christ said will come, which was predicted through the mouth of Zechariah, okay, is that greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands. But so the reception of that kingdom will mark the restoration, okay, of all things. Okay, we have God now dwelling with, with faithfuls. Traditional teachings has it that when the Lord comes a second time, He will come for the church to and return to where He came from. That is what we have always been made to believe. And at that time, the world is going to be destroyed. But the Bible does not teach this. What the Bible teaches is that when the Lord comes, He will come and make His home with us. He's going to come to dwell among us here on earth. It says that when you pray, say that our Father who is in heaven, hallowed be thy name, let thy kingdom come. Okay, so it is God coming down to establish his home or his presence, among us here. He did not say that let thy kingdom come and later come for your kingdom to where you are coming from. That is not what Bible teaches. It said that let thy kingdom come. So that time of the reception of the kingdom will be the time when the Lord uh, dwell or establish his home with us and dwell with us. That is what the Bible teaches. In Zechariah was among the prophet, who predicted, this, that the Lord will come to make his home with us in Zechariah chapter 20. And he's going to do so through that greater and more perfect tabernacle. In Zechariah chapter 36, verse 20 to 28. And also, if anyone obeys my word, my Father will love him, and we will come to make our home with the person. That is the temple. That is the new temple. In John chapter number in John chapter number 14, verse 23. And also in Revelation chapter number 21, that is the time of the reception of that greater and more perfect, tabernacle. In that greater and more perfect tabernacle, that was the time of the reception of that kingdom, okay, marking the time of the restoration, okay, of all things. God, the Lord has now come to dwell among his people, just as it was prior to the fall of man in the Garden of Eden. Okay, so uh, that is that, and this is how we have to, understand it. So in Revelation chapter number 21, verse 3, it said that now look, the tabernacle of God is with men. Now the tabernacle is another name for the throne of God in Exodus chapter 16. Okay, because within the tabernacle is where the divine throne, the most holy place, is the most holy place, and the presence of the Lord is confined to the most holy place, upon the mercy seat. Okay, so what that which he is going to build, that new temple, the new tabernacle, which he's going to build, will have that divine throne in the most holy place, and upon it the Lord will sit to reign. That is what Zechariah predicted. Okay, that is what Zechariah predicted, and that will be the time of restoration of all things. Okay, because God removed his presence from men, and now he's going to restore his presence with men again through that greater and more perfect tabernacle. So the time of the reception of the kingdom, um, the establishment of the new tabernacle is the time of the restoration of all things. But as I said, the tabernacle is also called the throne of God. So as I said, within the tabernacle is a component called the most holy place, and that is where the Lord's throne is. So when you read Exodus chapter 16, it's going to tell you that. So when John said that, look, that the tabernacle of God now dwells with men, or is among men, that was the time of the restoration of of all things. That is the time when the Lord had established his home with us. Okay, he's going to do it in a newness of way, not of the old. or the oldest of way. Now, the Old Covenant or the Old Testament was a foreshadowing of the New Testament. It was a type and shadow of the New Testament. The types and shadow give way to the reality, which is the New Testament. So under the Old Covenant, God had dwelt with Israel, among Israel, in that temples made built with hands. But that was not his permanent place. Okay, he was looking for that which is not built with hands, and that is spiritual in nature, and that was the kingdom which he said he was going to build. Okay, so to teach that, now let me add this. Remember, before God had, or in the course of the time, God was instructing Moses to build, that tabernacle in order to sit among or dwell among them. He showed him heaven. He showed him the true tabernacle. Okay, the spiritual one that not built with hands, and he instructed him to build a replica. He instructed him to build one that mimic the one he had been shown. Now, that was that. But the man's aim or hope was to dwell with the Lord, was to be with where the Lord is. That is to be in that tabernacle, in that temple, not built with hands, not the one built with hands. See, under the Old Covenant, it was only the high priest who could enter the most holy place once and for all. Okay, whilst the rest of the people stand outside the tabernacle. Okay, but Christ said that he was going to go to the Father's place and prepare a place. Now, when he's done, he will now invite us all to himself so that where he is, there we will also be. That will be the time of the reception of the new kingdom. Okay, that will be the time when he dwells, among us. It is not going to be limited to the high priest, but it's going to be, with us all, because in First Peter chapter 2, verse 9 following, he said that he has made us all royal priesthood. Christ is going to sit on his throne to reign as a priest, according to Zechariah chapter number 6, verse 12 and 13. And we have also been made royal priesthood, and so we qualify to sit with him on the throne in the greater and more perfect tabernacle. So that was the hope of man. It was behind the curtains uh, to dwell with God. Okay, to restore that lost relationship in Eden to mankind again. Okay, so when you read uh, Hebrew chapter number 6, when you read Hebrew chapter number 6, Hebrew chapter number 6, verse 18, following, it says that by two immutable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we might have strong consolation, who have fled for refuge to lay hold of the hope set before us. So you see, the hope of man, they were fleeing to they were fleeing to or fleeing for a refuge, okay, that has been laid before them. Okay, in other words, they were fleeing into the Lord's bosom, into the Lord's presence. Okay, that was the hope of man, to enter into the most holy place. And to be in his presence is to have that restored covenant relationship as it was in the Garden of Eden. Okay, so he says that this hope we have as an anchor of the soul, both sure and steadfast, which enters the presence behind the veil. Okay, so it was behind the veil. That is where the hope was. That is where they were fleeing to for refuge. Not outside, not the holy place, but rather in the most holy place where divine throne was. Okay, so it says that both sure which enters the presence, okay, behind the veil, where the forerunner has entered for us, even Jesus having become high priest, forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. So Jesus Christ had first entered there on our behalf. If you read Hebrew chapter number 9, verse 23, 24, it said that he entered into the most holy place, into more perfect, greater and more perfect tabernacle on our behalf. Okay, so when he is done with the atonement as a high priest, he will now come upon a throne, then he invite us into the most holy place so that where he is, there we also be. Just that is the restoration of all things. Okay. That is just, by the way, the restoration of all things. Okay, so this is how we have to understand it, as we begin this series. The Mosaic temple system could not bring one into the presence of God because of the weakness of that covenant. Okay, it could only condemn and it could not give life. If you read Galatians chapter 3, verse 21, it says that if there was given a law which could produce uh, life, then certainly righteousness would have come through the law. Okay, and righteousness is one and equal to being in the Lord's presence. Okay, so the law, uh, which was the embodiment of the entire Mosaic, temple cultus and temple system and everything, was weak and made nothing perfect. Okay, it was just weak and made nothing perfect. It could not save one. It could condemn, but it could not save one because in Hebrew chapter number 10, blood of animal could not, remove sin. So everything done there, was, imperfect. Okay, but it was only giving way to the more perfect and greater tabernacle with better sacrifices and so on and so forth. That was to come. So um, when you read Hebrew chapter 7, verse 18, it said that for on the one hand, there is an annulling of the former commandment because of its weakness and unprofitableness. So that has to do with the old covenant. It was weakness. It was weak because it could not remove sin. Per Galatians 3:21 and Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1 and to 6. It was weak, and so it could not do that. Now, verse 9, he said that for the law made nothing perfect, so it could not make nothing perfect. On the other hand, there is a bringing in of a better hope, which enters the presence behind the veil, where our forerunner, that is Christ, has entered there on our behalf. So Christ entered there not for his own sake, because after all he was dead. However, he has to come to create the path through which we now, get into the most holy place. So that I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one enters into the Lord's presence except through me. John 14:6. So Christ has to, prepare that way. Now, when he has finished, he will now come to invite us into the most holy place. Okay. So he said that on the other hand, there is a bringing in. So that time, the perfect tabernacle was now about to be received here on earth. So there is a bringing in. So it was a present continuous tense of a better hope through which we draw near to God. That is through the kingdom. That is through the kingdom. That is through that new temple, new tabernacle, greater and more perfect tabernacle. Okay. With this, we are able to draw near to God, okay, to restore that relationship. But to do that requires, the shedding of blood, because without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin. Hebrews 9:23. So through the blood of Christ, we have entered into the most holy place. That is the time of restoration of all things. It's just about we entering into the Lord's presence. In the beginning, there was a relationship between God and man. Sin was imputed and the two fell apart. Okay. Now, blood of animal, was instituted in order to restore God and man again. But that could not happen because the blood of animals could not remove sin. Okay. So it says that offering and sacrifices you did not desire, a body you have prepared for me. He said that, behold, I have come to do your will. He takes away the first and bring in the better one. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1 to 10. So it was the blood of Christ that was perfect, that was able to remove sin, to join us or to restore us, to God again. And that he did it through the tabernacle, through the more perfect tabernacle, which he purchased with the same blood. So in Hebrews chapter number 10, verse 19, it says that by his blood we have entered into the most holy place. We are not waiting. You see, sometimes that is what people think, that we have to wait to die go to paradise, wait for 1,000 years before this happened. No, that is impossible. We have had it even whilst alive here on earth. Through the kingdom, spiritually, we have entered into the most holy place. So that is where we are. We are sitting with the Lord in heaven. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 5 and verse 6. We are there. You understand? So that is the time of the restoration of all things. But remember, that could only come after the first one has been destroyed, after the first tabernacle has been destroyed, because he said that if the first one was faultless, a better way or another way would not have been, would not have been sought for. Okay, so because the first one could not, bring one to the Lord's presence, it has to be destroyed for the new one to come. However, so long as the first one stood, the Jerusalem temple stood, the new one could not come. Okay, which is why it was necessary for that one to be destroyed. Okay, in order for the better one to come, through which man, get into the Lord's presence. And that is what I will be talking about in my next video. Okay, the restraint. Okay, what was restrained man from entering into the Lord's presence? Okay, Hebrew chapter number 8, that is what he says. That so long as the earthly tabernacles too, there were priests who were serving according to the law, and the Lord's own could not come. Okay, but for his own to come, the first one must be destroyed. However, at that time, the old one was being destroyed and it was being renewed and replaced by the more greater and more perfect tabernacle. And that was consummated in 70 AD, because it was in 70 AD that the existing one built with hands was destroyed and replaced, by the spiritual one, which does not come with observation, and that is where the Lord has His presence. So today, that is where we are, and that restoration has taken place. So the next video, I'll be talking about what was restraining man from entering into the most holy place, and as to whether that restraint has been removed. If we determine that restraint or obstacle has been removed, then you don't have to argue that the restoration or the restitution of all things has occurred, and we will continue recording videos to connect this restoration of all things to the time of the return of the Lord. So until we meet again, say bye.